My talks and teachings and queries into the nature of things, into the imperceivable. Can you directly look at and ascertain the mysteries of the world? I think somebody very famous said that. Can you look directly into Pandora's box? What is this nature of... this has been a very large topic that I've tried to explore lately with people. And it has to do with the moment that you're in versus the desire of the future versus some sort of balance in between, because as immortal cellular beings, part of the one universal mind that get to experience life in a fractionated version of the soul called spirits, there's certainly the experience you're having now, and there's certainly experience you're having right now, and then in a moment and another moment. And in these moments, there's this calm abiding, as some of the teachers might speak about, abiding in the moment and having a very relaxed feeling about it. And it's all well and good, but there is always the something within, the longing of something. It's in the physical body, the mind. There are certainly moments that everybody has of, well, at least I do, of absolute comfort and nowness and freshness and just being, lacking words. I find myself oftentimes not even attempting to listen to the words that are being said, but just the sounds. If someone's talking, it's sometimes hard to key in on the words they're trying to say, and it's more of a tonality. It's more of the underlining feeling or tension or lack thereof tension in their voice. And in nature, what you find is that because there isn't a constructed language, I've often spoke about what language is as a tool, it's an angular concept. It takes a whole everything and chops it up into degrees and angles. So if you go into nature, there's no written language. What is it about these animals that just know? There's a implicit knowing in their being of how to access their particular frequencies and languages. They don't speak another language. Yet humans, we find there's a very interesting thing that we can mimic and go do bird calls and howl out to the wolf, and we can mimic things. But we've also designed this very clunky language, and I don't know if clunky is the right word, but there's so many different languages. We could get into the Tower of Babel and Babylon and babbling and babbling brooks and babbling babies, and what are these words? What are these divisions of the all-infinite everything? And then we divide it down into our English language of 26 little ones and 26 big ones, equaling the 52 weeks in a year and all of these fun games. But even in there, we obviously know the difference between someone saying thank you and thank you and thank you very much. There's a huge degree of difference in the intensity and tension and tonality behind anything. So there's this very peculiar thing about the written word that it seems to imply there's only one meaning, but then as we look farther and farther, there's many meanings to the same word, as in synonyms and antonyms and all of things that sound alike, that aren't really the same, but they're spelled different. And then we get into this very interesting, peculiar situation with words and language. And then there's, as we dig deeper into the the depth and the tonality and the delivery of a word. It can mean anything. Everybody, all the great comedians always do a great little bit on the word fuck. How many possible meanings and how many displays of stubbing your toe, joy, despair, amazement, curiosity, so many different things that one word could imply. And as we try to separate this great expanse of whatever our experience is and try to define it into words. So all of the great writers, whether it be Thoreau or one of my personal favorites, Tom Robbins, what a wonderful way with words that he has. And it's all trying to execute the same thing. It's taking paradoxes, seeming paradoxes, and putting them into the same cauldron and mixing them up and showing you something. But even that is in the written word. So I always am very curious as to what it sounds like in their head when they're writing it. But their use of... This is why it takes thousands of pages and tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of words to try to isolate one feeling. You read a book and there's one feeling about that book, an underlining and overarching feeling about that. There's a certain vibration that a book carries. And in the great writers, they try to, it's the comedy drama, but it's even bigger than that for the greatest, because they're trying to pinpoint the center. They're trying to get inside of Pandora's box and like a jack in a box, just pop it open for you so you can see. And they're using this language that wasn't made for it. It's most troubling at times, but yet it's so expansive in so many dimensions and so many words in the English language, and new ones created all the time, and all of the other different languages, and those are just programs, right? But what is it beneath those sounds? And so when you come out into nature and you hear the ducks, you hear the birds, you hear the penguins. If you're out in somewhere cold, depending on where you are, you hear different. You call those natural sounds by organic creatures that have not been domesticated. A domesticated dog barks and whines and has a different language than an undomesticated dog. But then you start to listen even closer, and as your feet crunch on the leaves, and you can hear the wind and the breeze through the tree branches and the moss, and it becomes a whole living book of sound. Yet we try to take all of that and chop it up into A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. And somehow to meet someone, to talk to someone, how much can you really learn with language? For me, it's the sound of someone's voice, and for me, it's looking at someone in the eyes, and I find that to be most, as Descartes said, the eyes are the seat to the soul. And how many people can really actually look into someone's eyes and see without any barriers, they can look infinitely into the depth of someone's eyes and out the other side into their own eyes. There's a very interesting thing that happens. They say you look into someone's eyes for 10 seconds and you fall in love with them. I don't know that to be true whatsoever. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, maybe because, I love everything to begin with. And then when you see something, to look into someone's eyes, you can still see barriers. You can still see fractionated versions of self. You can see if you look acutely, passions, desires, fears, all of these things that people live with, that they store up as tension. And that tension, as I've explored with people before, you can release these through trigger points in the body. You can release these through sounds, through even doing something as simple as walking on the earth, because now you have, as anyone knows, you have a holographic matrix of self on the bottom of your feet, as well as the palm of your hands, as well as your head, your back. So you have these reflexology points, and just by pushing in one point somewhere, you're actually affecting neurological pathways in the brain. So this connection to looking into someone's eyes, you can see those things as well if you look acutely. So out here in nature, you see these things just grow and live, and I don't know if I posted it. It might be one of the hundreds and hundreds of talks I have not posted. I was talking the other day about this tree. These trees in New Orleans, some of them have poles that hold up the branches. And it's like a concrete block and a wooden or a metal pole holding up branches. Some of them are filled in with styrofoam or concrete, which just it's a very, the word peculiar once again pops up. And it has to do with man, and here it's like someone gets a cavity, so you fill it in with heavy metal. It really doesn't make any sense, none whatsoever. We're trying to rebuild an organic system with inorganic things, and I'm looking here at this tree with concrete in it, and I think to myself, does this living organism want concrete inside of it, holding it up, or does it just want to live through its natural life process, which could involve, in fact, healing itself, as some of these trees in this park are upwards of 800 years old. And if some of these trees organically went through its process and it's the end of the tree's life, well then so be it. But then I see these things held up by, is it a man coming and saying, here Grandpa, here's your cane, and does Grandpa really want to continue on? But the tree doesn't. The tree is infinite knowledge and wisdom. It doesn't fear death because it knows it's part of the entire structure of the overmind and the overmind of the tree. And this would get into the morphogenetic resonances. I forget the scientist that got into this. I know he worked with McKenna a lot, and he did a TED talk on the 8 or 10 different fundamental lies in science, meaning there's a bunch of bases of mathematics that science uses that are they're either always moving or they're false, but yet they use them to predict futures. And how can that be if these certain things aren't if it's always moving? Let's use this example. If however people see space and the universe, is it ever expansive? Because if it is, then you can't mathematically prove anything. Because if everything is infinitely growing, then everything is always moving. And if everything is always moving, how can you pinpoint anything? How can you mathematically define anything if the numbers keep growing? If the space keeps growing, how much? If you have 1,000 cubic inches of space and then you're blowing up a balloon and you blow it up more, then it's obviously more. So how can you do any mathematical framework? How can you use what is the delusions of science? Because there are so very, very many. We could get into so many different aspects of the perceived real, these sciences that people use this science term and throw it on anything, especially medicine. And how far are we away from the truth of medicine? Anybody with even the most sophomoric or a pedestrian amount of knowledge about what medicine does and what it is it's just a Band-Aid. It doesn't do anything. It covers up a symptomatic responses. It doesn't deal with any of the root system of what the cause of dis-ease is. So as I'm sitting out here in nature, getting back to how does nature heal itself? Is nature out of order? Is it out of balance? Is there a natural harmony to everything? Of course there is. And what of this morphogenetic resonances? What of these homing pigeons? That was the work that he did, and I just wish I could remember his name off the top of my head. But they did this study where they took homing pigeons, and no matter what they did with these homing pigeons, wherever they moved them, they could put magnets over their eye. They could blindfold them. They could put them in a new position. They would always find their way back to where they were supposed to go, and they couldn't come to any conclusion of how these pigeons could figure out how that's done unless they have like a larger overmind network framework of what the entire system already looks like from above, like an actual map of everything, that no matter where you put them, they could use the resonance of the entire species that already has a blueprint of everything that's going on and use that, which gets a lot into the larger hive mind. And I've often talked about this in my earlier videos about what the hive mind is in a bad way and in a good way, because there's a hive mind that occurs in a very belligerent way, in a reckless way, in a very fundamentally naive way, in a way that there's no real thought processes. There's no deeper wisdom. It's just, here, do this, go with the flow. This is how everything goes. Here's the school of fish. Here's what you've been taught. Now do this. And there's automatic response mechanisms that everybody has. Not everyone. See, that's the thing that goes into what the hive mind is. But then there's a larger hive mind. And I wouldn't even call it a hive mind. It's a larger mastermind. The overall mind of the soul that people can grab from. And some people are just set into one set of frequencies. Other people have access to the whole entire thing. Other people have access to fractions of it. But this larger mind, if everybody had access to that, wow, what a brilliant place this would be. And maybe it is, and there's just a bunch of smaller frequencies running around. And the hopes that I think anyone that's on the type of path that I'm on is to open up those network capabilities for people's minds to see a larger thing, to see the tree and the forest at the same time, and to also know where the water is, and their connection to not only I think maybe times people think I'm against the inorganic systems, and I'm totally not. Everything exists in its state. Everything is fine where it is. It's just a matter of when the inorganics start to overstep their bounds, usually nature just says, no, we're not going to have that. And see, so there's this strange balance between it, even though, I mean, what would the world look like without the technology? What would, the technological advancements? And how much of a strain have those things put on culture? And what is the underlining humanity is, I think, a bigger question. Like, what is human these days? What is the humanness? Because I think everyone here has experienced absolute dehumanization, and seen it, watched it, felt it, experienced it. Like a lack of absolute feeling towards anything that is like people have been robbed of it. So, kind of wax a little philosophical here for everybody, but as always, this is just maybe to gap open a little bit of the door so people can see a little bit more of what's going on in the universe. And as always, I always come back with more solutions and deeper understandings of how to fix these things. Cheers, everybody.